Marcus Johnson strode confidently towards the Crimson Plate, a prestigious restaurant nestled in the heart of the city. The sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow on his sharp navy suit, meticulously tailored to fit him just right. He had spent the previous night meticulously preparing for this moment, honing his culinary skills and rehearsing answers to potential interview questions. As he approached the grand entrance, his heart raced with a mixture of excitement and anticipation. This was it, the opportunity he had been waiting for. A chance to showcase his talent in a high-end establishment that could launch his career to new heights. As he pushed through the heavy oak door, Marcus was greeted by the soft hum of conversation and the clinking of fine china. The lavish decor exuded an air of elegance, with crystal chandeliers casting a soft light over the diners, who appeared completely absorbed in their meals. Marcus's confidence momentarily faltered as he scanned the room, taking in the affluent clientele, their designer outfits and polished appearances. Yet, he squared his shoulders and walked further inside, determined to make a lasting impression. However, as he made his way to the reception area, he couldn't help but notice the staff's reactions. A few waiters exchanged glances, their eyes narrowing in disdain. A hushed whisper floated through the air, laced with judgment and disbelief. "What's he doing here?" one of them snickered under their breath. Marcus felt his stomach churn, the warmth of excitement turning into a creeping sense of unease. He took a deep breath, trying to shake off the negativity that surrounded him. "Marcus Johnson for the interview," he announced to the receptionist, forcing a smile despite the palpable tension in the air. She barely glanced up, her expression indifferent as she waved him towards a small waiting area. He settled into a plush chair, trying to focus on the task at hand, but the silence felt suffocating. The whispers continued, and he caught snippets of conversations that stung like 1,000 tiny needles. "Can you believe he thinks he can work here?" another staff member remarked, loud enough for Marcus to hear. The laughter that followed echoed in his ears, each chuckle a reminder of the barriers he faced in a world that often judged by appearances. Just then, Mr. Thompson, the restaurant's owner, made his entrance. A tall, imposing figure, he radiated an air of authority and entitlement. He surveyed the room with a critical eye before his gaze landed on Marcus. With a dismissive wave of his hand, he approached, a smile that never reached his eyes plastered on his face. "This isn't the place for you," he declared, his voice dripping with condescension. The words struck Marcus like a physical blow, leaving him momentarily speechless. He felt the color drain from his face as humiliation washed over him. In a matter of seconds, the dreams he had nurtured for so long began to unravel. "Excuse me?" Marcus stammered, struggling to maintain his composure. "I have the skills and experience." Skills don't matter if you don't fit the image we uphold here," Mr. Thompson interrupted, his tone final. "Thank you for your time, but I think it's best you leave." Marcus stood frozen, grappling with the bitter taste of rejection. The laughter of the staff rang in his ears as he turned on his heels, his heart heavy with disappointment. Each step away from the Crimson Plate felt like a step further from his dreams, yet deep within him, a flicker of determination ignited. He would not let this moment define him. As he stepped outside into the bustling street, the weight of the incident began to settle in. The sun was still shining, but it felt dimmer now. He took a deep breath, resolving to channel his pain into something stronger. The city buzzed around him, but all he could focus on was the fire that had ignited in his chest. A fire that demanded he reclaim his dignity, prove his worth, and rise above the prejudice that had just reared its ugly head. Marcus Johnson sat on the worn-out couch in Sarah's apartment, a place filled with the comforting smell of fresh herbs and spices. The walls were adorned with pictures of their culinary adventures, whimsical plate presentations, laughter-filled dinners, and the occasional food festival they had attended together. But today, the joy felt distant. He stared blankly at the television, where a cooking show played in the background, the vibrant colors and exuberant hosts contrasting sharply with his mood. "What a joke," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I can't believe I thought I had a chance at the Crimson Plate." Sarah, perched on the edge of the kitchen counter, turned to him with a determined look in her eyes. Marcus, you can't let them get to you. That place doesn't define your talent or your worth. It's just one restaurant. He sighed deeply, running a hand through his curly hair, which had been neatly styled for his interview. It doesn't matter. They made it clear that I'm not welcome there. It's not just about cooking. It's about who I am. Exactly. And who you are is incredible, she replied, hopping off the counter and standing in front of him. You need to channel this anger into something positive. You have skills, Marcus. Let's showcase them. He looked up, intrigued but hesitant. What do you mean? What if we start a food blog? We can film you cooking, sharing your recipes and techniques. You'll reach people who appreciate what you do, she suggested, her enthusiasm palpable. Marcus's brow furrowed as he considered the idea. A blog? Who would even watch it? More people than you think. You'd be surprised how many people are out there looking for inspiration, Sarah said, her voice full of conviction. Plus, it'll be fun. We can do this together. After a moment of silence, Marcus's lips curled into a small smile. You really think so? I know so, she replied, nudging his shoulder playfully. Let's start today. We can film a simple recipe and post it online. With a newfound sense of determination igniting within him, Marcus nodded. All right, let's do it. As they set up the makeshift filming area in Sarah's cozy kitchen, Marcus felt a flicker of excitement. It had been a while since he had focused solely on cooking without the weight of expectations hanging over him. He donned his apron, a vibrant blue that contrasted with the muted decor of the kitchen, and began to chop vegetables with precision. Okay, what are we making? Sarah asked, adjusting the camera on the countertop. How about a classic gumbo? It's one of my favorites, he replied, his voice gaining strength as he spoke about the dish. It's hearty, full of flavor, and tells a story. Perfect. Gumbo it is, she said, her eyes sparkling. Let's show the world how it's done. As the camera rolled, Marcus poured his heart into the cooking process, explaining each step with passion. Cooking is about love and tradition, he said, stirring the pot as the rich aroma enveloped the room. This is how my grandmother used to make it. Each ingredient has a purpose. Sarah watched, captivated by his transformation. The confidence that had been so shaken just hours before was slowly returning, and she couldn't help but smile as she captured every moment on film. Wow, Marcus, you really light up when you talk about food, she remarked, her admiration evident. This is going to resonate with people. Hours passed, and by the time they finished filming, they had created not just a dish but a piece of art. As they sat down to enjoy the gumbo, Marcus felt a sense of hope blooming within him. This is amazing, he said, savoring each bite. I didn't realize how much I missed this. You're going to inspire so many people with this, Sarah encouraged, raising her spoon in a toast. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, Marcus echoed, clinking his spoon against hers. A week later, as they prepared to upload their first video, Marcus had a sense of anticipation mixed with anxiety. But as the views began to roll in, so did the comments, positive and encouraging. He felt a surge of adrenaline as he watched the numbers climb, gratitude washing over him. See? I told you. Sarah cheered, nudging his side with excitement. People love you. Maybe this is just the start, Marcus thought aloud, his mind racing with possibilities. Maybe I can really make something of this. One afternoon, while shopping for ingredients at the local market, Marcus was lost in thought about their next video when he bumped into an elderly man who looked familiar. Excuse me, young man, the man said, adjusting his glasses and studying Marcus with keen eyes. You have a certain spark about you. Are you a chef? Yes, I am, Marcus replied, surprised by the compliment. I'm just starting out, trying to find my way. The man's eyes lit up. Ah, I see. You remind me of myself at your age. I'm Mr. Anderson, a retired chef. If you don't mind my saying, you have great potential. Thank you, Marcus said, his heart racing. I'm just trying to get my footing after a setback. Mr. Anderson nodded knowingly. The culinary world can be harsh, but it's also full of opportunities for those willing to work hard. I'd be happy to mentor you if you're interested. Really? That would mean so much to me, Marcus replied, his voice full of hope. I'd love that. Then it's settled, Mr. Anderson said with a warm smile. Let's meet next week and start honing your skills. I see great things in your future, Marcus. As they parted ways, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path ahead was uncertain, but with Sarah's support and Mr. Anderson's guidance, he was ready to embrace the challenges that lay ahead, determined to turn his dreams into reality. Under the warm glow of the kitchen lights, Marcus Johnson stood before a gleaming stainless steel countertop, his heart racing with both excitement and anxiety. Mr. Anderson, his mentor, was a seasoned chef with a wealth of experience, and today was the day Marcus would take his cooking to the next level. The elderly chef leaned against the counter, arms crossed, observing Marcus with a keen eye. Remember, Marcus, Mr. Anderson began, his voice steady and rhythmic. Cooking is not just about following a recipe. It's about understanding the ingredients, knowing how they interact, and creating a harmony on the plate. He pointed to a selection of fresh vegetables laid out before them. What do you see? Marcus studied the vibrant colors of the bell peppers, the deep greens of the zucchini, and the bright orange of the carrots. I see potential, he replied, straightening his back. Each of these can tell a story if used correctly. Mr. Anderson nodded, a smile creeping onto his lips. Good, but a story needs a narrative. What do you want your dish to convey? As he pondered this, Marcus felt a spark of inspiration. I want it to reflect resilience and hope, like my journey. Each layer of flavor should represent overcoming adversity. Then let's create a dish that embodies that spirit, Mr. Anderson said, rolling up his sleeves. They began chopping and sautéing, the kitchen filling with the intoxicating aroma of garlic and herbs. With every stir of the pot, Marcus felt more confident in his abilities, his hands moving with precision and grace. Hours passed, and the two chefs created a medley of dishes that showcased not only Marcus's culinary skills, but also the deep connection he felt to his heritage. This is more than just food, Marcus exclaimed, plating his vibrant vegetable stir-fry with a sprinkle of sesame seeds. It's a celebration of where I come from. Exactly, Mr. Anderson replied, glancing at the clock. Now, let's shift gears. You need to understand the business side of this industry if you ever want to own your own restaurant. The transition from chef to entrepreneur was daunting, but Marcus was eager to learn. Mr. Anderson took him through the intricacies of managing a restaurant, budgeting, sourcing ingredients, and marketing. They sat at a small table cluttered with papers, and Marcus listened intently as Mr. Anderson shared his experiences. Every successful restaurant has a story to tell, and you need to ensure your story resonates with your audience, Mr. Anderson advised, tapping a pencil against a notepad. Have you thought about how you'd market your food blog? It's time to build your brand. As they brainstormed ideas, Marcus felt a surge of determination. I can showcase the dishes we create here, share my journey, and highlight the cultural significance behind each recipe. It's not just about food. It's about community and connection. That's the spirit, Mr. Anderson exclaimed, his eyes twinkling with pride. And you'll need to think about crowdfunding too. People love to support a good cause, especially one that promotes diversity and equality in the culinary world. Meanwhile, news about the Crimson Plate began to circulate in the culinary community. Marcus learned that the restaurant was struggling financially, and whispers about its imminent sale reached his ears. The thought of purchasing the very place that had humiliated him filled him with a mix of anger and ambition. Could he really take it over and transform it into something that reflected his values? One evening, as Marcus and Sarah sifted through the growing number of followers on their food blog, she leaned back in her chair, a thoughtful expression on her face. Marcus, you've built quite a following, she said, glancing at the screen. People are starting to notice your talent. This could be the perfect opportunity. What do you mean? Marcus asked, intrigued. I mean, if the Crimson Plate is for sale, maybe you should consider it. You have the skills and the support of your audience. Crowdfunding might just be the way to go. Marcus's mind raced at the prospect. The thought of turning the restaurant into a space that embraced inclusivity and innovation was electrifying. You really think I could pull it off? He asked, uncertainty creeping into his voice. Absolutely, Sarah encouraged, her eyes sparkling with excitement. We can lay out a plan, create a crowdfunding campaign, share your story, and show people what you're capable of. You've already proven that you can rise from rejection. This is your chance." Marcus nodded, a newfound determination settling in his chest. "Let's do it. Let's show everyone what the Crimson Plate can truly be." Together, they set to work, fueled by the hope of transforming a symbol of rejection into a beacon of possibility. As Marcus Johnson sat at his modest kitchen table, the glow of his laptop screen illuminated his determined face. He had recently gained a surge of followers on his food blog, where he showcased his culinary creations and shared snippets of his journey as a chef. However, with this newfound fame came an influx of negative comments that pierced through his confidence like daggers. In the digital world, anonymity often bred cruelty, and Marcus was not immune to the vitriol of those who held on to outdated prejudices. "You don't belong in this world," one comment read, while another echoed, "Stick to soul food. You'll never master fine dining." Each notification felt like a punch to the gut, and the weight of these words pressed heavily on his heart. "Marcus, don't let those haters get to you," Sarah said, her voice a steady presence beside him. She had become his rock, always willing to listen and provide encouragement. She leaned over, scrolling through the comments with a frown. "You know they're just projecting their insecurities, right? Your food speaks for itself." Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but it's hard not to let it affect me. I'm trying to prove that I belong, and this just makes me feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle." Sarah reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand on his. "You are fighting an uphill battle, but that's what makes your journey so powerful. Use their negativity as fuel. Show them what you're made of." Her words ignited a fire within Marcus. He took a deep breath, envisioning the day when he would not only own the Crimson Plate, but also transform it into a beacon of inclusivity and excellence. "You're right. I can't let them win. I'm going to show them that I can lead a fine dining experience that celebrates diversity." As the days passed, Marcus poured his energy into refining his skills in the kitchen, creating dishes that fused traditional techniques with his unique flair. He sought inspiration from his mentor, Mr. Anderson, who encouraged him to embrace the rich tapestry of his heritage while also mastering the art of high-end cuisine. One afternoon, as they worked side by side in Mr. Anderson's kitchen, the elderly chef inspected a delicate sauce Marcus had prepared. "This is exquisite," he said, his eyes sparkling with approval. "You've combined flavors that not only tell a story but also showcase your identity. This is what fine dining should be, an experience." Marcus beamed with pride, knowing that he was beginning to carve his own niche within the culinary world. The more he worked, the more he felt his vision for the Crimson Plate solidifying. He was not just seeking to reclaim a space that had rejected him. He was determined to change the very notion of what that space represented. However, with each passing day, the financial realities of buying the restaurant weighed heavily on him. He and Sarah had launched a crowdfunding campaign, and while the initial response was encouraging, they both knew it would take significant effort to reach their goal. "Every dollar counts," Sarah reminded him one evening as they sat in the dim light of his kitchen, surrounded by stacks of papers and receipts. "Remember, it's not just about the money. It's about the community rallying behind you." Marcus nodded, his resolve strengthening. "I can't wait to prove to them that I can turn this place around. It's going to be a restaurant where everyone feels welcome and where the food reflects our diverse backgrounds." But just as things began to look promising, a notification popped up on Marcus's laptop. It was an alert about the Crimson Plate, and his heart dropped as he read the headline. "Local restaurant faces closure amid financial struggles." The article detailed the struggles of the establishment and hinted at the impending sale, which only fueled Marcus's determination to act quickly. "Sarah," he said, his voice steady but urgent, "we need to make our move. If we're going to save the Crimson Plate, we have to put in an offer now before it's too late." "Let's do it," she replied, her eyes shining with excitement. "We can't let Mr. Thompson win. This is your chance, Marcus. You're about to turn the tables on him." With renewed vigor, Marcus set to work, gathering the necessary documents and preparing his offer. He was ready to reclaim what had been taken from him and to create a restaurant that would not only stand as a testament to his resilience, but also as a place of unity and celebration of culinary art. Little did he know, however, that Mr. Thompson was not going to let his vision come to fruition without a fight. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test Marcus's resolve and challenge everything he had fought for. The atmosphere inside, the Crimson Plate, buzzed with anticipation as Marcus Johnson prepared for the grand reopening. The restaurant, once a symbol of exclusion, now held the promise of inclusivity and culinary creativity under his ownership. The elegant decor glimmered under the soft lights, reflecting the hard work Marcus had put into transforming the space. He stood in the kitchen, a flurry of activity surrounding him as his team of diverse chefs prepped dishes that would leave a lasting impression. "Marcus, are you ready for this?" Sarah asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she adjusted her camera, preparing to capture the evening for their food blog. "More than ready," Marcus replied, wiping his hands on a towel and smiling. "This is our moment, Sarah. We've worked too hard for anything to go wrong." He glanced around, taking in the vibrant energy of his team. Each chef was eager, their confidence bolstered by the chance to showcase their talents. As guests began to fill the restaurant, murmurs of curiosity and excitement spread through the crowd. The local media had arrived, cameras flashing as they captured the revitalization of a once controversial establishment. Marcus felt a swell of pride, knowing that he was not just serving food but also changing perceptions. However, unbeknownst to Marcus, Mr. Thompson lurked in the shadows. The former owner, bitter and vengeful, had come to witness the event he had so vehemently opposed. He watched from a corner table, his expression darkened by resentment as he sipped a glass of wine, plotting how he might sabotage the evening. "Look at this place," Thompson muttered to himself, barely able to contain his disdain. "They think they can change it all with a few fancy dishes. Pathetic." He scanned the room, his eyes narrowing as he spotted Marcus, who was laughing and engaging with guests, a stark contrast to the way Thompson had treated people in the past. As the evening progressed, Marcus stepped up to the front of the restaurant, ready to address the crowd. He took a deep breath, the warmth of the room enveloping him. "Welcome, everyone, to the new Crimson Plate. Tonight, we celebrate not just food, but community, diversity, and the power of second chances." His voice resonated with sincerity, and the audience listened intently. "Together, we're proving that change is possible," he continued, his gaze sweeping over the faces in the crowd. "This restaurant is a testament to the resilience of those who have been marginalized in this industry. We are here to redefine what it means to dine in a restaurant." Applause erupted, and Marcus felt a surge of gratitude. But at that moment, Mr. Thompson rose from his seat, a sneer plastered across his face. "Spare us the speeches, Marcus," he called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You don't belong here. You're just a trend, a passing fad." The room fell silent, tension filling the air. Sarah, quick on her feet, stepped forward. "Excuse me, Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice steady despite the palpable tension. "Before you make any more accusations, perhaps we should discuss your history, the way you treated your staff and the community." She pulled out a folder filled with documents, evidence of Thompson's discriminatory practices. The crowd gasped, eyes darting between Sarah and Thompson. "What are you talking about?" Thompson stammered, his bravado faltering. "Let's talk about the time you refused to hire qualified chefs simply because of their race," Sarah challenged, flipping through the pages. "Or the countless complaints of mistreatment from your employees, which we've compiled here." She held the documents high, her determination shining through. Marcus watched, a mix of pride and disbelief washing over him. Sarah was fearless, standing up to the man who had once humiliated him. The audience began to murmur, their support shifting toward Marcus and his vision for the restaurant. "Your time is over, Thompson," Marcus said, stepping forward to join Sarah. "This restaurant is no longer a place of division. It's a place for everyone." The crowd erupted in applause, their unity echoing throughout the space. As Thompson's face turned crimson with anger, the reality of his downfall settled in. He had underestimated the power of resilience, community, and the spirit of those he had sought to belittle. The atmosphere shifted, a collective strength emerging from the crowd that stood firmly beside Marcus, ready to embrace a new chapter for the Crimson Plate. As Sarah unveiled the documents detailing Mr. Thompson's history of discrimination and mistreatment, the atmosphere in the Crimson Plate shifted dramatically. Gasps echoed through the crowd, and the previously muted chatter turned into a wave of outrage. Marcus stood tall, his heart pounding, as he felt the collective energy of the community rallying behind him. No longer was he the solitary figure standing against a powerful adversary. He was surrounded by allies. "Look at this, folks," Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. "This is what happens when we allow ignorance and prejudice to fester in our communities. This man has treated countless talented chefs and staff members like dirt, all because of their race or background." Mr. Thompson's face turned crimson, his mouth opening and closing as he searched for words, but no sound came out. The crowd began to murmur, their gazes fixed on him with a mixture of disgust and disbelief. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their eyes, and stepped forward. "Mr. Thompson," he addressed the former owner directly, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "You may have thought your money and influence gave you power over us, but today, we're taking that power back." A wave of applause erupted, and Marcus felt a surge of confidence. No one deserves to be treated as less than human, regardless of their appearance or background. This restaurant was built on the backs of people who worked hard, who poured their heart and soul into their craft. "We will not let your legacy of hate define us." From the back of the room, a former employee of the Crimson Plate stepped forward. "I quit because I couldn't stand the way we were treated. I'm proud to support Marcus now." The crowd erupted into cheers, many people nodding in agreement, their spirits lifted. Enraged, Mr. Thompson attempted to regain control, waving his hands dismissively. "You can't just turn this into a circus. You're ruining the reputation of this restaurant." His voice trembled, revealing the desperation behind his bravado. "Your reputation is already in shambles, Thompson," a voice called from the crowd. "You've had your chance to make this place great, and instead, you chose bigotry." As the chants of support for Marcus grew louder, Mr. Thompson's composure cracked. "This is an outrage. I will not stand for this," he shouted. But his protests fell on deaf ears. The community had made up its mind. In a climactic moment that would be remembered for years to come, the restaurant's security team approached Mr. Thompson. "Sir, you need to leave," one of them said firmly. "This is not your establishment anymore." With a last, furious glare at Marcus, the former owner was escorted out, the doors swinging shut behind him. The crowd erupted into applause, united in their condemnation of the man who had once wielded so much power over their lives. Marcus felt an overwhelming sense of relief wash over him. The weight of humiliation he had carried for so long was lifted, replaced by a strong current of pride and belonging. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with emotion as he turned to Sarah, who stood beside him, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. "I couldn't have done this without you." Sarah beamed back at him. "You did this, Marcus. You fought for your dream, and now it's a reality. This restaurant is a beacon of hope for everyone who has ever felt cast aside." As the celebration continued, Marcus stepped outside, taking a moment to breathe in the crisp evening air. He looked up at the Crimson Plate, now illuminated with warm, welcoming lights. It was more than just a restaurant. It was a symbol of resilience and change. The diverse array of chefs he had assembled for the grand reopening mingled at the entrance, each of them representing a different story, a different journey. Marcus smiled, knowing that together, they would create a culinary experience like no other. One that celebrated not just food, but community and acceptance. With a renewed sense of purpose, he stepped back inside, ready to embrace the future, where passion and talent knew no color or class. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but in that moment, standing among his newfound family, Marcus felt an undeniable truth. They had turned the tide, and together, they would cook up a new legacy at the Crimson Plate.